timber this barn. Our love gives me warmth and shelter. Sounds like music and it smells so sweet. Grace and beauty are the constant beat. Horses around me and I feel like I'm home. 'Cause I'm wild about barns. 'Cause I'm wild about barns. 'Cause I'm wild about barns. Wild about barns.
A lifelong animal lover, Adolphus Busch built these stables in 1885 as his private family barn for $35,000. That's almost $1 million in today's currency. Quite a palace for the Budweiser Clydesdale. And that palace was built on a river of beer.
Anheuser-Busch traces its origins back to 1852. There was a small brewery named the Bavarian Brewery. It was started here in St. Louis, and a man named George Snyder started the brewery.
Unfortunately, George went bankrupt. So Eberhard Anheuser, one of the firm's largest creditors, decided to step in and see if he could make a go of it, even though he knew nothing about running a brewery. But he heard about this bright young man named Adolphus Busch, who ran a successful wholesale brewery supply company in town.
So Eberhard Anheuser met Adolphus Busch and liked him so much that he introduced him to his daughter. And so Adolphus Busch actually marries Lily Anheuser, and that's where that first Anheuser-Busch connection happens in 1864.
The first Budweiser wasn't brewed until 1876, around the time the Clydesdales began arriving in America from Scotland. The powerful newcomers quickly gained popularity and were widely adopted for farming and heavy hauling in both the US and Canada. It wasn't until the 1930s, however, that they became an official part of the Budweiser brand, marking a historic moment.
The Clydesdales were introduced on April 7th, 1933. That's the day when beer became legal after Prohibition. August Sr. was the head of the company. His two sons, Adolphus III and August Jr., were working for him at the time, and they thought, you know what, let's really celebrate the end of Prohibition. So they decided to buy their dad an antique beer wagon, and they picked up a 6-horse Clydesdale hitch, and they presented that to August Sr. on April 7th. And the idea was to remind him and remind everybody about those early days of the brewing business, kind of an idea of this is the way that beer delivery used to happen prior to Prohibition, and now happy days are finally here again.
Those fortunate Clydesdales would be given a luxurious home, warmed by steam heat and great fireplaces, and resplendent with fixtures and materials fit for royalty. So why did he make everything so elaborate?
I think Adolphus was a huge animal lover, and he really took a lot of care and time in designing the stables. Edmund Jungenfeld was the original architect of the stables, and Adolphus's direction was, look, you know, we care a lot about our animals, and we care a lot about the horses that we have and our wagons that we have here. We want to make sure that they have an equally nice home as humans do. You know, there's a lot of original wood and a lot of original tile and beautiful stained glass. It's something that you don't typically see in a barn. Yeah, all of those stained glass windows, they open, and so with that great circular pattern, all the air can come through and create a really nice cross breeze. So there's a lot of natural forms of ventilation within the structure.
And how many barns have a world-class chandelier?
Yeah, there's a gorgeous chandelier that came from the 1904 World's Fair here in St. Louis. It came from the French Pavilion. It's about 650 pounds, and it's this beautiful brass chandelier. It appears right in the center of the stables.
And has there been any major structural changes over the years?
No, it's actually part of the National Historic Landmark Registry. It was designated in 1967, so the main integrity of the building hasn't changed at all.
As you can see, this is all original wood.
The attention to detail and quality, evident throughout the building, even extends to the 130-pound harness each Clydesdale wears on the hitch.
If it goes on the horse, it gets 2 people polish it for 4 hours. All the brass, all the leather.
Each pulling position, or station, in the hitch has its own collar, because their jobs are very different. In other words, pulling a big beer wagon is more complicated than it looks.
So 8 horses pull the wagon, and the stations, we start back closest to the wagon, we call those the wheel horses. Wheel horses are the biggest, heaviest, and strongest horses, and the reason for that is they help start and stop the wagon. Then you move up to the next team as a body team. They're a little smaller than the wheel horses, but they're still pretty muscular, not as not as agile and athletic, but strong. And then you go to the swing team, and they start to get a little smaller. They're not quite as strong as the wheel and body team. They become more agile and faster moving. And then you get to the smallest and most agile and active horses in the lead. And the reason is because they're out making the wide sweeping turn.
So how long does it take to prep for a show?
It takes 6 people, 5 hours to get ready for the show. We wash the horses' feet, white feathers, before every show. They get groomed before every show. We braid them, obviously, have to feed them and get their stalls cleaned and walk them and all of that as well. So it's a pretty large production to get everything ready.
And you guys are on the road like 300 days a year, right?
Yeah, the teams travel about 320 days a year. They go to events and fairs and festivals all over the United States. All right, Ingrid, I want to introduce you to my favorite Clydesdale.
Okay, why is he your favorite?
Oh, he's just so big and he's got a great personality. His name's Prince. Come here, bud.
Hi, Prince. Oh, I think this is one of the biggest I've ever seen.
Yeah. Come here, big boy.
So how old is this guy?
Prince is 8, and he travels with the St. Louis Hitch. So he's one of the big, strong guys that pulls the wagon. He does a lot of one-horse shows around the city when we're out traveling as well. But he's a perfect Budweiser Clydesdale. His color, bay and color, is one of our requirements. They have to have 4 white stocking feet, black mane and tail, and a white blaze. 18 hand tall and 2,000 pounds. So Prince is by far what the specs, if you will, to be a Budweiser Clydesdale.
You're a beauty. After visiting the barn and seeing how the horses in their home are being looked after with such pride and love, we think that Adolphus, animal lover that he was, would be pleased and proud that the Budweiser Clydesdales have earned an enduring spot in America's heart.